Thank you everyone for joining us. I know this is post-lunch, but we are chill, we're not gonna, I'm just gonna wake you up when I start seeing you nodding off. Okay, let's get started. I don't think there's an introduction, someone introducing us, it's just us introducing ourselves. So I am Didi Budiharto. I'm a former CISO of multiple oil and gas companies. I now have my own fractional CISO firm. Come on in. And I'm so pleased to be here. This is the second time I'm moderating in the ElevateIT conference. I'm gonna stall my introduction so everyone can come in and sit themselves. I'm gonna talk like the Southerner, very slowly. I'm from way down south in the equator. I'm from Indonesia, so yeah, I can lengthen it. What's that?
I'm saying elections are in the air.
Oh yeah, exactly. Thank you for reminding me. For not wanting to go there during that time. Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, for those of you who just walked in, I'm Didi Budiharto. I am a former CISO. I used to say I'm a recovering CISO, but I've recovered now because I have my own fractional CISO firm. Just started almost 2 years ago, and I'm so honored to be moderating this session with these panelists. They are accomplished, and we're gonna learn so much from them, and I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. They only have 1 minute to introduce themselves, okay? They know if they go longer, I'm gonna cut them off, because we want this session to be interactive, to have questions, and I'm so grateful our counterparts, our male allies and supports are here together, so this is also related to your loved one, whether it's your husband, your wife, your children, your daughters, your sisters, your mothers who are in the field or not in the field, but supporting women all around. Now, I have an icebreaker question for each one of them. The icebreaker question is, what is the non-tech talent each one of us has? I'm gonna start with me. I don't know whether it's called talent or just shamelessly what I like doing. I love Latin dancing. So you turn on that Latin music, I'm right there, whether or not there's anyone else dancing. So that's my non-tech talent.
Turn it on right now. Cue the music. I'll just chuck it.
Okay, Nikki.
Okay, my name is Nikki Jackson. I'm the CISO for Woodforest National Bank. I have been with the bank for about 21, 22 years.
Maybe I'm not supposed to walk around.
Okay. I have a background in information systems. I started out in IT. I'm trying to stay within my 1 minute. So I've held a plethora of positions at the bank, from IT to audit to now being the CISO. And my non-tech talent, I think it's probably not too shocking for people who are from Texas. I like to shoot guns. I like to go ski shooting, shooting clays at the gun range, that kind of stuff. And that's me.
Pow.
It's great to be here. My name is Jenna Morgan-Roth. I currently lead our enterprise applications group as well as our crisis and continuity management program at Jensen Hughes. My entire career has revolved around the IT realm. I've worn a number of different hats, from programmer to business analyst to solution integrator, and then just kind of risen up the leadership ranks. My non-tech talent, I wish I could say I did something fancy like Latin dancing or could solve a Rubik's Cube in 30 seconds. So this is probably going to sound weird, but I would say dodgeball. I can catch heaters and I can throw some heaters with a pretty high rate of accuracy. On to you, Jenny.
That's awesome.
I am not a dancer, so please don't ask us to dance. I'm Jenny Torno. My current role is Executive Director of IT Inpatient Clinical Systems and Innovation at Houston Methodist. So with that, it's kind of a dual hat, and I touch all parts of IT between those two roles. I've been there for about 12 years. Before Houston Methodist, I was touched every part of IT except not really security, except as somebody that worked with the security team. So pretty broad range of experience over the years. And my non-tech talent, going with fantasy football. think I'm actually pretty good at it. I've won my league several times. So we'll see how things shake out this year, but a huge football fan, and that just adds a whole nother dimension to it.
That's a good one.
I know. I would have never thought. That's awesome. Remember, this is an interactive sessions, right? Think of questions you want to ask, but we have some questions prepped. But if you want to ask clarifying question on their responses, feel free to do so. Raise your hands. I'll pass over the mic. Hopefully, it's not going to be a lot of feedback when I do that. Okay, first question. Ready. In what ways have you experienced the confidence gap, and what are your tactics to overcome it? Confidence gap.
Who wants to go first?
AKA sometimes called imposter syndrome. It doesn't have to be, but it could be. Yeah, anyone can go first.
I'll go. So I feel like confidence, this is how I took it. My lack of confidence in an area is mine. I think a lot of times, and it took me a while to get here, especially in an industry where there's not a lot of women and there's a lot of differences between men and women in this industry. So just because we don't all think alike or come up with the same solutions, anybody in IT knows you can come up with a solution 50 different ways to solve one problem. So I think over the years, I've just kind of owned my insecurities or gaps, and I've just worked on them. And I've just learned to not let others influence those, whether it's a knowledge gap, whether it's whatever it is, a perception. You own it and you can control it in most cases. And that's kind of how I've dealt with it. So if I was struggling with being the only female in a room in certain meetings, then I learned how to own my presence in that room and not let anyone else take it from me. If I was struggling with a knowledge gap because certain level of engineers knew way more, I learned in my role what I need to know, and then to use other subject matter experts for what they needed to know. So that would be my knowledge. When you identify a gap, an insecurity or something, it's yours to own and fix. It's not really something you should let others control about you.
I have a follow-up question on that. Are you open of being vulnerable, telling them, I don't know that area? Do you do that?
In my environment, yes. I do get that is not always the case, but in my environment, yes. And you don't always have to say, I don't know that. You can say, let me get back with you. That will require some additional research. Or, you'll get in a role where everything's your problem, but none of it's your problem. So often you'll get asked things that you don't know, but they just get thrown on your plate because you're the person who drives results or gets things done or whatever. And so often I find myself in a situation saying, I'll go figure it out and get back to you.
Okay.
And
that was going to be my answer to your question, actually, was that it's okay to admit either you don't know something or, give some kind of deferring answer. Because if you pretend like you know something that's really a gap, it's probably going to bite you later. So to me, I would say I found that it's okay to say, I'm not really sure. Let me get back to you, or let me ask the team and we'll get back to you, or something like that.
Well, you have the mic now, Jeannie. So what is your experience in the confidence gap?
So when I first came to my current company, it was clear very quickly that there was a lot more process and rigor to everything, especially implementing projects, than what I was used to. So, I had to kind of take a step back, and instead of trying to get through things quickly and just deliver something, like learn, what's the process and what's the culture here, and then how do I fit into that, and how do I lead my team to fit into that, because that's the best way, that you'll succeed in your organization. So really just realizing that, I was nowhere close to that level of rigor, so I had to kind of learn it and get up to speed, and then, be part of it.
Sorry, I'm going to move around because I can't see them when they talk.
Okay, go ahead. So I'll go. So even just thinking about an initial response of what tactics do you use to overcome the confidence gap, my brain immediately goes to, well, I'm not an expert because I struggle with this on a regular basis, which is case in point, right? So I personally experience the confidence gap. If I haven't done something for years and years and I don't have 5 successful iterations under my belt, I'm not going to say I'm proficient, and I'm not going to say I'm an expert. I also have started to see that in other women that I work with. One recent example is one company that we acquired in the Pacific region. I had heard, hey, they have this woman who is amazing on this platform. She can solve any problem. She can build any solution that you would ask. So I'd heard from multiple people how awesome she was. And just a few weeks ago, I happened to be on a call with her, and I said, oh, so-and-so, I've heard about you, and I've heard you're an expert in this platform, and I'd really like to, schedule some time and talk to you. And she said, oh, I don't know that I'd say I'm an expert. And her boss was on the call, and he spoke up and said, don't sell yourself short. You absolutely are an expert. So if I didn't know better, right, and I would say it was enlightening for me to hear it from another woman, because everybody else has said she was an expert, but then she kind of, just said, well, I don't know that I'd say that. And from an outsider, you think, well, maybe she isn't the expert, right? But that's not the case. So the tactics, right, I think in that specific example, if she just, if it were me, maybe just saying, well, thank you, I appreciate that. And other tactics that I use are just to have in my back pocket some specific scenarios where, I've asked questions that have changed the direction in a very meaningful way, right? Or brought up really good points and surprised other people, right? Exceeded their expectations, or sometimes when I've surprised myself and thought, wow, that was a really good idea. So when that, lack of confidence or questioning of myself and should I really be at this table, I remind myself of, some of those things. And they don't have to be huge accomplishments, but just even some of the small day-to-day things I remind myself, and those are the tactics I use.
Yeah, no, that's very good.
She has a question, but I want to add to that, because something she said just triggered this in my mind. And it's no offense to the men, but we're just speaking from women. I think that us as women, we find it very difficult to have confidence if we're not an expert. And I don't think men have that problem. They can know 20% and they'll be like, I can do it. But I think we feel like we have to know 99% before we're even willing to speak up. And I think that's something we should work on, because you don't have to be an expert to be confident in what you do know. Be confident in the 50% that you do know, or the 30% that you do know, and then go gain the knowledge in the other area. Throughout my 20 years, I've just noticed kind of what you're talking about, where we will kind of, I don't want to say play ourselves down, but, lay back if we don't feel like we can 100% attack something full force. And I think that's something men don't really struggle with. They don't lack confidence in that area.
That's so true.
Look, they all raise their hands. Is that true?
Yeah, no. I just recently, this week, I talked to someone who has both sons and daughters, and they said the sons, whenever they do something, did you see that? Yeah. We're like, whether the performance was at par or lower, but they were just celebrating themselves, right? But the girls, their daughters, is like, oh, wow, not really, am I good at that? But I don't know whether it's genetic, whether it's the environmental, but yes. So, question?
Do you need a mic?
So yes, no,
I think, well, just to make sure everyone heard.
so I think you hit the nail on the head. Oh, I get nervous behind the microphone. Dang it.
Make you nervous.
Oh my God. Okay. All right, here we go. So I think you hit the nail on the head. And this is something that's important. You are absolutely right. There are a lot of men that they can know 15, 20% and, oh, I am the best in the room. And I suspect you're speaking from experience in that women have this mindset of, well, I need to learn more. I need to learn more. And for all the women in the room that might be struggling with confidence, that is your superpower. The fact that you know you need to learn more, it makes you primed to become an expert and outperform all of your male peers. Don't be afraid of it. Lean into it.
Yes, thank you. Your name?
Sean.
Sean. Thank you, Sean.
Okay, now,
I think there's one in the front or no? Question?
Yes, right here.
Okay, hang on. Yeah.
Here, you may have to step back a little bit not to get beat.
Hold on.
No, I find myself having to feel like I have to over prepare for every meeting, especially when I'm usually the only woman in the room. And my peers sometimes just don't. I mean, they come not ready to do anything. And then sometimes I think they even maybe resent that I'm as prepared as I am. So do y'all run into that?
Sometimes I feel like they just show up. That's it. But I think it depends on the culture of your environment, of your organization. And sometimes, and it's not just all men. I mean, because I do work with some men that will be prepared or whatever. But I just think what I've seen consistently is you don't have to. I've never been on a call where somebody had to tell a man, don't sell yourself short. But I've been on plenty where they've had to tell them, no, you got it, or you can do it, or encourage that confidence. So, but yeah, I do feel like a lot of the times when we're the only one in the room, or when we feel like we just have to be over prepared because we don't know what we'll be questioned on, we don't know the approach that'll be taken, and that kind of thing.
So my question goes along with that. So oftentimes I work with senior and individual contributors in the women in the IT space. I'll throw myself in there included. Is a lot of times we self-deprecate in a meeting so that we kind of and I don't know if it's a strategy, but I'm going to speak it as a strategy. We kind of like undersell our value. And then when we perform, right? And so it kind of was like, oh, we're not really that good. And then when we did our job well, then it was like, okay, well, at least we did par, or at least what we told them we do. But as leaders, as C-suite leaders, how do you stop yourself from doing that? Because there's something, a lot of senior gals that I work with, there's something in their communication, their demeanor that doesn't allow them to stop deprecating themselves in conversations. And I don't know how to help them through that barrier. So any thoughts? How do y'all not do it?
So for me, I had to learn over time, but what I saw and I experienced is if I downplay my efforts, then that's how it'll be accepted. If I communicate my efforts, what it took, how long it's going to take, do you want this quicker, do you want this right? And then I start setting the standards of what's expected of me, how people see me, how people view me. That was my first step. And I mean, in this industry, being a female and being the only one, you have to do it in a way where you're not coming across attitude-ish. But there are tactics to do that. I mean, you just stick to the facts, don't get very emotional and that kind of thing. And then you will notice how you represent yourself is how they'll take you. If you are coming and I'm not really sure, very meek, then when you're talking, they're going to overtalk you. And when you have a response, they're not going to maybe pay it as much attention. But when you don't have to be oppositional, but there's a way to question people for knowledge or information without being oppositional. There's a way to speak and be assertive without being aggressive and those kind of things.
Yeah, I would say you just have to try to not let yourself do that, And one way to do that is, just to feel confident in yourself. Like I used to be terrified of doing something like this. Now I do it all the time. And one way I got over it was just to tell myself, it's not a big deal. Just go up there. I mean, you got asked to come for a reason. So, try to boost yourself up or find that friend or coworker that'll help, boost you up if you're kind of feeling like, you're not sure of yourself or inadequate. That could help.
Yeah, I would just say don't even, be mindful of it going into different conversations and just, don't even go there. There's one specific tactic. I mean, sometimes I would find myself saying, this might be a stupid question, but, right? Mm-hmm. Or forgive my ignorance here, but I don't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. So, yes. Take those simple things, right? Just kind of, those simple things, take them out of your vocabulary and but it's a constant struggle, I would say. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One other word that I'm very conscious not to use too much is the word just. It lessens the weight of your questions, your statement, everything. Oh, I'm just here to do whatever. No, you're doing the job. I'm here to do cybersecurity. I'm here to do program management. Be conscious about removing the word just.
I'm guilty of all of that, although I had a career coach that was really helpful to me, and I went to her for something else, and she's like, oh no, you need to do this first. And it's a book, Unlearn the Habit of Being Yourself, because it's all those tapes go through your mind, and it gives you little exercises. I think the author is Joe Dispenza, and I got it free on Libby from the library if you don't use that app. But it was awesome, because before I went to a meeting, my preparation included this. And I actually wrote down in the margins not to say just, or not to bring in a little bit of humor, because at the time I was a non-R&D person on an R&D staff. So I always thought I had to couch what I was going to say, but I'd research the hell out of what I was going to say, so I would deserve to be there. But in my head, I didn't, and that's something I think a lot of women carry that script. So I've referred so many people to that, and when I see people doing it, I tell them afterwards, love what you said, but I'm going to give you X, Y, Z.
So I'm going to move on to the next question because it's so closely related to the first one, and please chime in, men, women, and all. Because this applies to both. Finding your voice, in this case, for women, in a male-dominated environment, or if you are a male new in your career, transitioning, how do you find your voice? But that would be your comments later, but we're going to ask the panelists. How do you find your voice in a male-dominated world?
So I can start with this one. So growing up, sports were my thing. And from the time I was little bitty, all throughout high school, my mother constantly told me, baby, you let your playing do the talking. In other words, when you step out onto the court or you step out onto the field, don't go out there and run your mouth and start talking smack or get into arguments. Get out there and open up a can of whoop ass, and nothing needs to be said, right? It will be seen. So in essence, that is how I have found my voice in a male-dominated industry. I deliver. I strive for excellence in everything that I do. I give credit where it's due. I build and maintain trust, and just, go above and beyond in everything that I possibly can. So that's how I found my voice.
I would say I used to work in an environment that was very intimidating, especially, no offense, anybody in the security team. I think it seemed like their whole point was to just say no and then see what you would do, fight back, how you'd fight back and justify yourself. So really it's, some of the stuff that we've talked about, just being confident and, you know what you're asking for and it's legitimate. Don't let them, intimidate you and wear you down. And, bring whatever team you need with you to help answer all the possible questions you'll have if it's one of those situations. But yeah, really just don't let them win.
I agree with all that. I think it's different at different levels. So, when you're starting out or entry level and then you get into an engineer level or a middle management level, it's different at every level. I think you have to adapt to the culture and then figure out the best strategy. I think the first question about your confidence, that will play a lot into it. Me personally, since I've been at the same place for so long, I've developed a reputation for my work ethic and those kind of things. So like she said, those things spoke for me for 15 years. And then when I became senior management and executive management, it's almost like my reputation preceded me. So I didn't have to fight as much for a voice because people were seeking my advice on certain things. But I think you have to first build a reputation, your work ethic, and let everything speak for you, and then exude the confidence when you know what you're talking about. And if you find yourself in a situation where you're being overtalked or somebody is just not hearing you, I think you can learn strategies, which I learned in audit, very strange, but you ask people to almost disprove what they're trying to say. So you say, well, help me understand why you feel that way. Or, to me, if somebody's over talking you or they only want to get your point across, then you can turn it around and say, help me understand why you don't believe whatever you're trying to say. And that's some strategies I've learned to kind of break through really, really difficult conversations or difficult situations where the person or the group just didn't want to change their mind or didn't want to hear another perspective.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, sharing experience, Sean?
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to speak from my experience. I spent about 2 decades in kind of progressive roles leading IT teams. I was very comfortable, very confident in that domain. And then about 8 years ago, I had an opportunity to also start leading human resources. Talk about stretching out of your comfort zone, being the introverted IT guy to leading a team of HR professionals. And all of a sudden, that confidence that was up here went all the way down here. I had lost all of my confidence, thinking, oh my God, what have I done, first of all. But then I focused all of my energy and effort into learning about employment law and understanding payroll processes and benefits. And what I discovered that over time, I started to become more competent in this new domain. Confidence comes from having a stack of undeniable results that you are who you say you are. And it's not flipping a switch. Is Sean confident, yes or no? It's a spectrum. It's how confident is Sean. So anytime you step into a new role and you're not confident, focus all of your energy on learning everything you can so that you can deliver results, become the best version of yourself, build everyone else on your team around you, and eventually you will wake up and think, oh wow, I have confidence in this new domain. So that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is just focus on continuing to educate yourself and learn and grow, and the confidence will come over time as you deliver.
I think that's a good point. If we think of confidence like a muscle, like you have to continually work it out in different domains, or I like that analogy. Good job.
Hey, my name is Anna. I spent a couple decades as well. To Sean's point, there are the ups and downs of career where women are clearly differentiated because of the life changes, kids, the pregnancies and all that stuff. Oh, there is a second, the pay disparity and the way women are looked at when there is a challenging task. Okay, so with all that, what I learned is I started embracing what I am, who I am. I'm not sorry if I'm late, if I have to drop my kids. I am not sorry if I walk into a meeting. I'll confidently say that, hey, this is what is the situation. I make a joke about it. Humor. I have seen people pulling me aside and telling me, hey, you may want to cut this small talk, because I'm like, I'm cool about what I'm doing. I'm keeping it transparent. Having that confidence and cutting these barriers and embracing who we are as women leaders, it's so important, to her point, right? So just and being apologetic. Does it make sense? I don't use any of those words. I make sense, and I know that I make sense. Again, to Sean's point, be thorough with the subject, educate yourself, walk into the room, be over-prepared, that's fine, but that's what we are. Women are not equal, we are different, and we are cool about what we are.
I like that.
We bring in diversity. We take care of families, so we can handle projects just like that. So when you embrace that confidence and walk into the meeting and give an eye-to-eye contact and tell them that you can't bullshit with me because I know the stuff. So when you are confident, when you know your stuff, I think everything flows in. That's what I've learned.
Agree.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. And yeah,
Great.
good one. The habit of over-apologizing, woo, sometimes it gets me annoyed too. Men and women, stop over-apologizing. I'm trying to teach my adult children, stop apologizing for things that are outside your controls. And so I can share a story about related to confidence and finding my voice. So I was in the corporate world for 30-something years, and about 2 years ago, I decided to go on my own. I'm an entrepreneur now. I've been in security 6 oil and gas companies, chair of the American Petroleum Institute IT Security Committee. Hey, when I walked in, everyone said, hi, Didi, and say, hello, you know. Then I became an entrepreneur. That is, I've never done it ever in my life. When I was 52, I started doing that. All my learning experience is being told what to do in the corporate environment control. So I started going to tech startups networking, entrepreneurs networking, any type of networking. I would walk into their room. No one knew who I was, as most of them also, these tech founders are very, very young. And I would have literally, I never sweat introducing myself. Oh, in the networking environment, people who know me, I go around and I don't have problems talking. And I would go to this tech startup networking event. I'm shaking, nervous. Oh my gosh, what do I say? What do I say? And then I remember, okay, this is, what did I say to my mentees when they say this to me? So I had to revisit all the advices that I've shared with my mentee. And the key is to, like what everyone was saying, is you keep showing up, keep learning. Give yourself grace to learn, and you'll get there. I still don't know everything about entrepreneurship, but I feel more comfortable talking about it and then inviting other people if they're interested in starting their own companies. I know where to advise you where to go for the networking community. So it's all similar in the breath that, hey, you know, just keep showing up, stop apologizing, give yourself grace, and you'll get there.
Can I add something?
Yes.
I think it really also makes a difference from the background. Isna. It really makes a difference, the background you come from. So I come from a family in Asia and Pakistan. I was in a family where people were like, don't make your daughters study. Don't send them to school. So I remember my mother used to hide us in the backyard and make us study, make us learn. I think today who I am is because of my mother. If she can have a confidence to just step up and say, no, I want my daughters. My one sister is a doctor. I'm an engineer and a business development. Another brother is a chartered accountant in Dublin. Another is an engineer. So we all stood up for ourselves. Trust me, the whole world says diversity. I have went through a lot. I have spent 13 years in Middle East. First of all, I have to prove myself to the Arabs. I'm not native Arab, but trust me, I am there. And I was holding a trophy from Salesforce, which is a $1 billion organization, for opening up business in Saudi Arabia. There was no Arab who did that. When I came here in the US 2 years ago, trust me, the toxic environment I had to bear, because number one, you are the one with a hijab on your head. You don't dress like us. You are not white, you're brown. You're not our culture. You don't have our accent. How can you go and meet the VPs and the CEOs? You're not that senior. Today, they trust me. Isna, you are the one who would be the brand face for our organization. So it really depends. Trust me, it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of emotional journey. You get hurt, but develop a thick skin. Let people know, but be confident that you can do it. Right.
Thank you, Itna. Yes. Salute to your mom. Yes. This is the force.
All the mothers.
Yeah, all the mothers. And the dads too, who are allies and support and all that. Anyone else? Any other comment on this topic? Okay. Chris? I wore this tennis shoes on purpose, even though I'm short.
Oh, I almost didn't want to say anything, but you inspire me. So I served in the military. I didn't tell my parents I was joining.
Oh, by the way, say your name, please.
Chris Hardwick, and I'm from CompuCycle. Thank you. We cybersecurely and sustainably retire IT and OT equipment. I joined the military, served in the military. My parents were not excited about that decision. Then after that, went to offshore oil and gas. I felt like I had walked into a secret room when one of my first offshore jobs, I was doing part of a variable seismic profile team, VSP team, and it was delayed. And I went into the day room. I was looking around the library. And of course, there's not a lot of people that look like me in offshore drilling, but more and more every day. Don't be dissuaded. I saw the books in the library were how to be a better father, how to be a better employee, how to lead employees. And I thought, oh, I feel like I'm seeing secrets here. This is secrets to what the crew is feeling. They're reading these books all the time. The pages were well-worn and dog-eared. And I thought, well, they're feeling what I'm feeling. And as stupid as it sounds, I think, to your point, when we see each other as people, and that we have genuine feelings, and that whoever we are, fathers, mothers, partners, fellow employees, colleagues, as naive as it sounds, and maybe it's my military training, but when we see each other as true colleagues and we work shoulder to shoulder, if they work 12-hour days, I work 12-hour days. If they're working and have to go overtime, I go overtime when I'm shoulder to shoulder with them. And I think when we do that, we see each other and the struggle that we go through, and the respect comes through. I don't know if that's very revealing or helpful, but that's the way I felt it when I've done it. And I'm so proud of everybody in here, even just to come to this meeting. It means a great deal.
Thank you, Chris. This is standing room only. Okay, state your name, please.
My name is Gary Ekstrom. I'm with Crown Castle. In a former life, I was an IT director, and I actually came into that job from a sales background with a degree in finance. So how does that qualify me to be a technical manager? It didn't. But what it did qualify me for was, when I'm dealing with engineers, and no harm intended, but a lot of it, most engineers are men. Mm-hmm. I think you'll agree, although I have a chemical engineer daughter. But what I found was it's a communication gap. Engineers speak their language, and you speak your language. So if I had, wanted to get angry at them because I didn't understand them, that would have been human, I guess. But it's all a matter of getting on the same level with whoever you're dealing with on your team. And I did have engineers reporting to me, and it took a little while. But I did get to the point where they would say something, and I'd repeat it back to them in my language and get them to agree to it. So that's, and as women, you've got a second hurdle to overcome, because you've got to think of like a man's going to think when you're in that position. So for what it's worth, that was how I managed to get it done.
And just to add to that, Gary, when I first started in the oil and gas industry, I will never forget, there was a female CIO. And the first time I heard her speak, you just talking about communication just sparked this story. But she said, in the IT realm, as you go throughout your career, yes, technology changes rapidly and drastically, right? But the main pain point, or the main challenge that always remains, is communication with the business and with your stakeholders. Mm-hmm. And I think, I've certainly found that to be true. And I think certainly when it comes to innovation, right, and trying to drive that, you keep those communication lines as open and as transparent and honest as possible.
Right. And one other thing, when you're in a position, there's a reason you're there. And you have to convey that to your subordinates. They have to understand you're there for a reason. For my reason, it was for me to translate what they were telling me and what they were doing and designing into business language and financial language that I could talk to the CIOs and CEOs about. So it's a communications gap too.
Yep. Okay. Back. Don't forget to state your name.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, panel. Honored guests, my name is Emma Wafi. I'm going to ask a controversial question, but before that, I'm a C-level woman, Middle Eastern engineer. So keep that in mind when I do ask, and I do have a family. So from a lens of a male, a colleague of mine, or someone who doesn't have children, right? When I go home early, or I miss work because I have to take care of family, raise sick children, I do miss work. And my colleagues, male or the ones who don't have children, have to pick up the slack. I mean, it's math, right? So again, keep in mind that I'm on your side of the population, but even from that perspective, they become angry, right? Like it's math, they have to work more without the joy of having a child, right? So why should there, and I know it's controversial, how do you answer, why should there be pay equality? Like, we always have to understand the other lens to be able to answer fairly and to stand our stand and be able to answer, because I've been asked that question. I need your help to answer, well, why do I have to pick up your slack? Why do we have to be equal? So how do you answer that?
Love it.
So I'll say I have about 4 or 5 different teams, probably about 20-something people working for me. Male or female, I don't necessarily know that I would be okay with somebody else having to do somebody else's job. Mm-hmm. I think I have kids. Out of 20 people, I have 2 females. And I'm trying to change that. And I am a very flexible executive. So if somebody has to go home because a kid is sick, or somebody has to take off to take somebody to the doctor, I'm okay with that. And you can make up the hours. You can come at 5 in the morning. You can, put them to bed and log in at 8. But I don't struggle with that because I don't set the expectation of, because you're a parent, you get to work less hours than somebody else in the same role and have equal pay. You get paid to do a job. I'm flexible with the time frame, and I'm flexible with deadlines and those kind of things. But I think that approach is primed to cause disruption in a group. And so for me, that's just not the culture I would set. I would just become more flexible. I would allow you to adjust your time or how you work. And even in a team environment, if somebody picked up the slack for you this week or whatever, then we would recommend, how can you help at another time, or how can you pick up the slack for that person, or if that person worked overnight this time, then maybe you schedule and get some help for you to do it the next week. We would be a team. So that would be my approach and how I would handle that situation.
Yeah, and my initial response is, right, the math that if someone else has to pick up the slack, right, and then the math has to work on both sides of the coin, right, because to have pay equality, you need to pull your equal share of the weight. So along with what Nikki's saying, right, and I've had the comments, right, even when I would leave at 5 o'clock, a male colleague that didn't have children, he would say, there she goes, disappearing at 5 p.m. again, right? When my 1-year-old had been in daycare for 11 hours almost at that point, right? So it just, those comments are going to be made, and you just have to try to learn how to brush them off. But it has always been my mindset that if I do have to take off early, right, or I'm going to miss something, I'm going to make it up and make sure that nobody else has to pull any extra weight because
you'll find the comments won't matter if you're producing. If you're producing and doing your job, those comments won't bother you, and your boss won't care. Because they care about you producing and doing your job.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly what Nikki just said, but also it should all even out over time. So, there might be nights where I'm working till 11, 12 because there's some issue, but then some other day at noon, I'm like, bye, Yeah. So as long as it all evens out over time and you're showing that you're pulling your weight, shouldn't really matter if you have to leave early or.
And the leader of that group should set the tone.
Yeah.
Okay, it has to come from the top. Most of my team members were males. This is just by design, and not by design, just naturally back then before more females coming into the field. And I want to support their wives too. So I always tell them, your boss is at home, whether they're married or not, right? Or whether your boss is a dog, a cat, it doesn't matter. I'm your boss at work. But we're gonna do something outside the office hours. I'm gonna ask you to do extra. Check with your family first. And that's the equality. And then, you know, I'm not gonna repeat what everyone is saying, but yeah, the leader has to set the tone. And I was a working mom for 2 young children too. I just felt like we were probably working the hardest of all, because after you pick up your kids from daycare, fed them, washed, clean everything, you still have to work to pick up the slack. So yeah, if colleagues talk like that, you need to be able to ignore.
Also, I think it would be really cool for y'all to share with us and demystify something that maybe we tend to, individual contributors, I'll say, or people that are aspiring to be CISOs, demystify the situation where you have to be the PTA mom, the best boss, the best workout person, the whatever y'all's category is, skeet shooting, which I like to do too. But you know, like all of those things, like, could y'all share with us that that's not what happened? Sometimes it was a Mr. Mom, or sometimes it was a Mrs. Nanny, or sometimes it was a Mrs. Sister who came in who helped you out or whatever. If you can demystify some of that for us, because a lot of us individual contributors and a lot of the ladies that I work with today, they tend to feel like I have to do everything, and they're not gonna get to where you are, I don't believe, if they try to do everything.
Tell us your name.
Oh, I'm Naomi.
Thank you.
That's leading into your other question about the work-life integration. Do you want to pose it, or you just want us to start talking?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was another question there. Yeah. Let's dive in. Work-life integration. Well, how have you been doing it?
So I think it's different at every level. Since I've worked at every level at the same place, I can speak to it. When you start coming from, I will say my experience, when I started into middle management, when I was managing like 1 or 2 people, I was a working manager. Like, I was doing tickets and managing 2 or 3 people. I was doing upgrades at night. I would bring my kid up there. She would sleep under the desk. And I was at that level where I felt like I had to work, over prepare, get certifications, know my training, do everything. And I was burning myself at both ends. And when you get to a place where you can adapt, whether you get a nanny or you get some help or you draw some boundaries, I'll tell you, in this role, I could literally work 20 hours a day. Like, it is just nonstop. So you do have to draw some boundaries where you say, I'm going to deal with critical, time-pressing things. People need my approval. People need this, you know, from 6 to 4 or 7 to 3, whatever. And then after that, I'm going to get my kids off the bus. I don't cook, but I'm going to make sure we have something to eat. You know, whatever is important in your life. I'm going to work out 2 days a week. You just have to set those boundaries, because you cannot do everything and be successful. You will be failing at something, whether it's parenting or whatever. Now, as you go up the ranks, you don't get paid for your hours. You get paid to do a job. And in certain roles, there's people who can't do your job. So there are times where I'm at work at 7 and I need to leave at 3, get home, get my kid off the bus at 4, feed her, get her started on her homework, and I'm back online at 7 to answer those questions, respond to those emails, because I know people are waiting on me to get their job done. So just know what it looks like as an entry-level manager or a senior-level manager is not going to be the same at every level, and you will have to adapt to be successful at every level.
I would say first, like, you have to tell yourself it's okay to not do every single thing. Where my kids went to elementary school, it was mostly stay-at-home moms, so I always felt really guilty, you know, that I was working and I couldn't go to everything. And so the way I got around that was to, you know, show up to the Christmas party, like do something, or, you know, every once in a while have lunch with my kids so they feel like, you know, they're getting attention too. So, you know, kind of picking and choosing where you get involved, but also work with whoever you report to see what they're cool with. Like, some are very cool and they want you to, you know, have those moments with your kids, and maybe work, you know, can wait till later in the night or something like that. So that's an important relationship to develop also. But yeah, don't feel like, and the other thing I would say is make sure that you fit things in that are for you and that you like, that make you happy. Otherwise, you're just running yourself ragged doing stuff for everybody else. So.
And so to answer your question about demystifying, I'm happy to do that. You wouldn't believe the piles of laundry that are in my house and in my closet. Last night was the first meal that I've cooked for my family in probably 6 weeks. And I actually got a call from my boss while I was cooking. Then my husband's yelling, "Something smells like it's burning," right? And then later that night, I was on a call with China. Late, my kids were running around in the backyard, jumping in the pool with their clothes on. So it's survival mode, right? But just like they said, you have got to find the time to balance as much as possible. Do the things for you, right? Show up for your kids or your family member, right? Know what's important and what's valuable. And I'm self-critical, right? That I should be able to do everything. Why is my closet a disaster, right? Everything should be clean. I feel like I'm failing on the home front, but you have to give yourself grace because there aren't enough hours in the day, and you just have to do the best you can do, and that's that.
And get help and don't be ashamed about it. My mom would try to make me feel like I am not a good wife because I don't cook and I have a maid. Sorry, I like my career. And those are the bottom things. Clearly, my kid needs a parent, so I'm going to show up in that capacity. So the things that are less important, the things that my husband don't make a big deal about, are cleaning and cooking. So if I get a meal prep or if I'm okay with picking up food on the way home, we're going to eat. That's the big thing. I don't have to be cooking Sunday dinner 2-3 days a week. It's just not where I am in life. So, figure out what's important for your household and then get help in the other areas, and don't let other people make you feel like you have to be like them, or just don't compare. Just do what works for your family.
Comparison is a thief of joy.
Yep.
Amen. Yes.
Hi, Lisa. I just have to add this into the mix because I haven't heard it yet. When my kids were, school-age kids and they were still at home, I couldn't have done it without my husband because I had this very responsible job, and there are times that the network is melting down and your kid has got to be picked up from school, right? Hey, dear, please, Chuck, go get the kids. I can't do it today, or whatever. And we really were partners in it. If I couldn't make it home to cook, he'd cook. It was, and yeah, we had a maid clean, so neither one of us wanted to do that. But, it was, I couldn't have done it without him. I mean, it was, I always had him as a backstop, and he always had me as a backstop.
And friends too, like when our kids are in sports and everything, we make friends with the other parents, and then you
take turns.
Hey, I'll drive the kids today, you drive them tomorrow, and then everybody's not doing the same thing and going crazy.
And I think what you'll find more today, that both spouses have very demanding careers. Just with inflation, the economy, it is very difficult for people to live without both spouses having significant careers.
Yeah.
And so friends, family, if my mom wasn't retired, I don't know what I'd do if I live in Humble and work in the Woodlands. You know what traffic is like, and you are always in a meeting till 3:30, 4 o'clock. So when I'm sitting behind a truck or I'm sitting on the Hardy and I see I'm not going to make it to the bus, having somebody you can call, whether it's a parent, a neighbor, all of those, I think, because people who are driven are typically also people who feel like they always have to do it themselves. Learning how to use your village is what is going to help you not lose your mind.
Village, I like that. Yeah, I have a funny story about asking my husband to pick up the kids. No, I agree. He actually took a step back in his career so I could soar. But his name is Andy. My former boss's name is Andy. Guess what? I sent the other Andy a text. Baby, could you pick up the kids, please? And he said, your kids? I said, yeah, they're yours too. Shit. Come on, Andy. Sorry, boss. So, partnership. Comments, back.
That one I've never had before.
So echoing on what Lisa said, I'm glad she had a very responsible spouse. Mine needed some training, and it wasn't until a friend of mine, well, he was in the military, and not everything can be managed that way.
Yeah.
Unless they went to the same boot camp you did, and you need to teach them. But a friend of mine, it was priceless. I got caught at work. I was doing something important. I don't know what it was my husband was going to do, but it was lesser in the scale. And he actually went to the school and told a mom, who he found the one working mom in the pickup line, and said, I'm going home to babysit the kids. And the loudest voice you ever heard that could be heard across the playground to the Girl Scout troop was, it is not babysitting, they are your children. So it's called parenting. But we do need, you do have to advocate, and you have to say, I would like you to do this, and this is how I'd like you to do it. No, by the way, pick up the dance bag because you may not have enough time.
Yep.
Don't forget the soccer cleats. So we had little bags hanging up. He'd know to go in the utility room, pick up what bag needed to go, and then off he went. And we progressed even where he could go to a cheerleading competition with all the right clothes. So some investment in training really can help you. And then I could he goes, oh, well, when are you meeting us there? And I didn't want to say after the massage and the pedicure were done, but you do. It's going back to Jenna's, you have to have some time for you too. So no, I wasn't at the office the entire morning on a Saturday. I did stop, and then I'm going to be at 9 hours of dance competition with you. But sometimes you just have to do that so they can walk in your shoes, because no one told us we had to do it all. We just took that burden on.
What's your name?
Oh, I'm Jill.
Jill. Thank you, Jill. Okay, we have one more. And before I give the mic to you, I wanted to remind everyone, you're here for a purpose, right? Whether for the conference or attending the session, do not forget to connect with each other, network, and not just connect, say, oh yeah, I've connected with so-and-so, but keep up that relationship. Build that village, support each other, and cultivate that. We're in it together. Whether you're a man supporting your wife's career, whether we're the moms, single parent, whatever, we need the support of each other. See each other as equal, as people, as humans, then it'll break down all the barriers.
Were you going to ask your last question?
I don't think we have time.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It was about changes in our career, but go ahead.
I have a career question for you. So it might relate. Emily Brewer with Korn Ferry, and I'm very curious because, I mean, we have a lot of women in this room, but looking at C-suite and looking at our technology teams, there are very, very, very small, like you mentioned, Nikki, 2 women, I think, on your team. So as leaders within our organizations, what can we do to bring more, female individual contributors in the tech space, but also female leadership?
That is about the last question.
There you go. She read the script through my mind.
So our last question was going to be on like mentorship and that kind of thing. So what I have found is that traditional mentorship is great. Your company will let you hook up with somebody and talk to them about how to be better and go toward their goals. But if there is nobody advocating or sponsoring you, if there's nobody speaking up for you in the rooms that you can't be in to actually get you to where you want to be, then it's not as effective. So for me, I feel like as a leader in the organization and a female, I have to advocate to get other females better roles or opportunities. And so that's where it's going to start, where each one teach one, everybody brings somebody else up, and it doesn't just have to be women, because I am where I am because men advocated for me also. So I think it's when you find that go-getter, that person that is young, that is ambitious, that is, pursuing things outside of work to build their career, then it is on us as leaders to advocate for them, to get them in the right spot, to get them the right opportunities, to get them the right exposure to people and projects and those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, I would just say, and I know we're on the clock here, but yes, finding mentors, and not just in the technical space, right? Mentors in your stakeholder and operational units. A lot of magic happens when you have those relationships, and it's not just at a higher level, right? But peer relationships, and build a lot of trust and transparency, because when you have those conversations, you learn a lot. You also learn about your operations, and that's where you can find the innovative things, right? Sometimes they mention something and it's, oh, that's a great idea. Sometimes I think, whatever you're smoking, I would probably like to have some of that, right? But that's where you bridge gaps in terms of innovation. But building those relationships outside of the technology group. And yeah, just strong relationships, I think, do a lot of good.
Yeah, not much to add, except my favorite mentor relationship was a female executive that I would typically never work with. And that I think we learned a ton from each other. But yeah, it was a great, totally different perspective than if I'd gone to like an IT person.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think the last point on that I want to make is that is what we can do as leaders. But I think people who want to grow, get up the chain, it is not a problem if you pursue a mentor that you think would be a good advocate for you. I think it can work both ways. And it doesn't just have to be internal. It could be somebody in the same industry working somewhere else. But once you build that relationship, it's okay to ask them, do you mind being a reference? Do you mind if I call you to review my resume? Do you those things, but find somebody who will not only give you advice, but advocate for you.
Yeah. Yes, always advocate for yourself.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you're the driver of your own career bus. That's what I keep telling my mentees. This has been a great session. Thank you so much. Feel free, get up to the panel. Feel free to connect, talk outside the office and everything else. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dee Dee.
Thank you.